The dust swirled around Elias's worn boots, each gust a whisper of the world that once was. His gaze, vacant and hollow, drifted across the skeletal remains of what had once been a bustling town, now merely a testament to an unspecified, devastating loss. The sun, a pale, indifferent orb in the bruised sky, cast long, distorted shadows that seemed to mock the vibrant life that had once pulsed beneath its rays. Every splintered timber, every cracked pane of glass, echoed the silence within him, a silence that had become his constant companion since the calamity. His world was barren, not just outwardly, but deep within his very core, a reflection of the profound emptiness that had taken root. He moved through the debris with a practiced, almost robotic gait, his movements devoid of any discernible purpose beyond simply existing. The air itself felt heavy, thick with the scent of decay and forgotten dreams. He remembered laughter, the kind that bubbled up unbidden, filling every corner of their small home. He remembered the warmth of a hand intertwined with his, the soft rustle of silk against his cheek, the scent of her hair like wildflowers after a spring rain. A ghost of a smile, fleeting and painful, touched his lips, only to vanish as quickly as it appeared, swallowed by the crushing weight of his present reality. Their garden, a symphony of color and life, now lay choked with weeds, the once proud roses reduced to thorny skeletons. He could almost hear the distant echo of her humming as she tended to them, her fingers gentle yet firm against the soil. He saw her, bathed in golden sunlight, her eyes sparkling with an unbridled joy that had been so infectious, so utterly captivating. That memory, so vivid and alive, was a cruel torment, a stark contrast to the desolate landscape before him, a landscape that mirrored the ruins of his own heart. The vibrant life they had built together, a tapestry woven with love and laughter, had been torn asunder, leaving behind only frayed threads and gaping holes. Hopelessness was a tangible entity, a shroud that clung to him, heavy and suffocating. It had seeped into his bones, numbing him to the cold, to the hunger, to the raw ache that perpetually resided behind his ribs. There were no tears left, only a profound aching void where his soul once resided. He was a vessel, adrift in a sea of despair, without compass or sail, merely waiting for the inevitable end. The future held no promise, the past only pain. He was trapped in an eternal twilight, suspended between what was and what could never be again. As he stumbled past a pile of rubble, his foot dislodged a small wooden box. It rolled a short distance, coming to rest against a broken brick. It was a music box, intricately carved, a gift he had given her years ago. Its delicate mechanism was shattered, the lid hanging askew. Yet from its broken heart a faint, almost imperceptible melody drifted on the wind, a haunting, ethereal tune, barely there, yet undeniably present. It was a fragment of their song, a whisper from a bygone era, a stark reminder of the love that had once filled their lives. The sound was so fragile, so unexpected, that Elias paused, his vacant eyes widening almost imperceptibly. It was a ghost of a sound, a phantom echo, yet it stirred something within him, a tremor in the desolate silence, a hint that perhaps not everything was entirely lost, even as the shadow of despair loomed so heavily. Elias navigated the desolate landscape with an almost unconscious persistence, each step a testament to an exhaustion that permeated his very being, deeper than muscle or bone. The ruined city stretched before him, a mausoleum of forgotten dreams, its skeletal structures clawing at a perpetually grey sky. Dust fine as ash coated everything, muffling sound and obscuring memory, yet it could not erase the ghosts that walked beside him. His mind, a fractured kaleidoscope, frequently snagged on shards of the past, particularly the gnawing memory of betrayal. It wasn't just the loss that had broken him, but the insidious sting of deceit that had preceded it, a wound that festered beneath the surface, refusing to heal. He remembered the hushed voices, the furtive glances, the subtle shifts in allegiance that he had, in his blindness, dismissed as trivial. Now each memory was a fresh stab, twisting the knife of his grief. He stumbled, his gaze falling upon a lone, withered plant struggling to survive amidst the rubble. Its leaves, once vibrant green, were now brittle and brown, clinging desperately to a cracked pot. It was a stark, painful contrast to the once flourishing garden he so vividly remembered, a place where life had burst forth in riotous color, tended by loving hands. He recalled the pride in her eyes as she pointed out a new bud, the gentle way she nurtured each delicate bloom. Now this single dying plant seemed to embody his own broken spirit, a testament to what had been lost and what could never be reclaimed. He knelt, his fingers brushing the dry soil, a futile gesture of sympathy. A deep-seated, unspoken need gnawed at him, a relentless hunger to understand why. Why had it all happened? Why had their world crumbled? Why had the promises been broken, the trust shattered? Even if no answers truly existed in this desolate new reality, the quest for them was the only flickering ember of purpose he possessed. It was a faint, burning desire, hidden beneath layers of despair. A whisper that urged him onward, even when every fiber of his being screamed for surrender. He needed to trace the threads of deceit, to comprehend the intricate tapestry of betrayal that had led to such utter devastation. Only then, perhaps, could he find a measure of peace, or at least a reason to persist. As he pushed through the skeletal remains of what was once a grand market, his boot dislodged a small metallic object, buried beneath a pile of debris. He paused, his heavy breath misting in the cold air, and bent down, his fingers closing around something cool and smooth. He pulled it free from the clinging dust, revealing a small, tarnished locket. It was not his. The metal was dull, corroded by time and exposure, but he could discern faint, intricate engravings on its surface, a delicate vine pattern he didn't recognize. He flipped it open with a grimy thumb, expecting emptiness, but inside, nestled against the tarnished silver, were two faded miniature photographs. One depicted a woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile, a stranger to him. The other, blurred and indistinct, showed a man, his features obscured by dirt and time. A chill, unrelated to the biting wind, snaked down Elias's spine. This locket, an intimate relic belonging to someone else, found amidst his own personal ruins, felt like a silent, unsettling message from a past he hadn't known, yet was now inextricably linked to his own fractured present. It was a tangible piece of a puzzle he hadn't realized he was meant to solve. A tiny, heavy weight in his palm that stirred a dormant curiosity within his numb heart. The locket, a cold, forgotten whisper of another life, ignited within Elias a spark he had believed extinguished forever. It wasn't the warmth of human connection, nor the faint glow of hope, but a scorching surge of suppressed anger. This small, intimate object, clearly a testament to love and memory, found in the heart of the devastation, felt like an insult, a cruel joke played by a merciless fate. It became a symbol not of what was lost to him, but of what had been taken, violently wrenched away by the architects of this desolation. The vague, gnawing questions about why began to coalesce into a sharp, burning desire for retribution against those responsible for the widespread ruin, for his personal agony. The faces of those he suspected, the shadowy figures of power and greed, began to form in his mind's eye, fueling a violent resolve. He began a solitary, dangerous journey, his every step now imbued with a purpose far darker than mere survival. The locket, clutched in his hand or tucked into a pocket over his heart, became a strange kind of compass guiding him not towards salvation, but towards judgment. His path was no longer aimless wandering. It was a deliberate march towards vengeance. Each aching muscle, every blistered foot, was a small sacrifice offered at the altar of justice, a grim payment for the peace he sought to shatter for others. The numb despair that had shrouded him for so long began to recede, replaced by a fierce, almost manic energy. He was no longer just Elias, the broken survivor. He was Elias, the avenger. Yet, beneath the hardened resolve, a profound internal conflict raged. His mind, once a canvas of bleak emptiness, was now a battleground. Letting go, finding forgiveness, these concepts felt alien, weak, almost traitorous to the memory of those he had lost. But the path of vengeance, he knew, was a treacherous one, fraught with its own brand of destruction. Would he become the very monster he sought to destroy? Would the pursuit of justice consume him entirely, leaving nothing but an empty husk fueled by hatred. The ghost of his former self, the man who had once believed in compassion, whispered warnings in the deepest recesses of his mind, a faint counterpoint to the roaring inferno of his rage. He wrestled with these opposing forces, each step a testament to his struggle, a physical manifestation of his inner turmoil. The world around him offered no solace, only a mirror to his internal strife. He faced harsh environmental challenges that seemed to conspire against his journey. Blinding dust storms rose without warning, scouring his skin and filling his lungs, mirroring the suffocating rage that threatened to choke him. The days were scorching, the sun a relentless eye in a sky devoid of mercy, while the nights plummeted into an icy abyss, reflecting the cold, hard core of his vengeful heart. Scarcity of water and food became a constant gnawing threat, each meager ration a stark reminder of the world's brokenness and the cruel indifference of those who had caused it. He navigated treacherous, crumbling terrains, scaled precarious inclines, and crossed desolate plains, his body pushed to its absolute limits. Each physical obstacle was a test, a crucible in which his resolve was forged, hardening with every grueling mile. One evening, huddled beneath the shattered remains of a highway overpass, seeking shelter from a sudden biting wind, Elias overheard whispers carried on the desolate air. They were faint, fragmented, but distinct enough to catch his attention. Two figures, shrouded in tattered cloaks, passed nearby, their voices low and urgent. They spoke of a hidden sanctuary, a place rumored to exist beyond the treacherous mountains, a haven untouched by the widespread ruin. More importantly, they spoke of secrets, of knowledge preserved, of truths that had been carefully guarded. The word truth resonated with Elias, cutting through the haze of his anger. Could this place hold the answers he sought, not just for vengeance, but for understanding? Could it offer a path to the architects of this devastation, or perhaps a different kind of justice? The whispers faded into the wind, but the seed of curiosity, a fragile shoot in the barren landscape of his soul, had been planted. The seed of curiosity, once a fragile shoot, now blossomed into an insistent beacon, guiding Elias through the final grueling stretch of his journey. The whispers of a hidden sanctuary had given his relentless march a new, more profound purpose, shifting his focus from mere retribution to the pursuit of deeper understanding. Days blurred into a punishing rhythm of ascent and descent, his body screaming in protest, but his mind, now alight with a hesitant hope, refused to yield. Finally, the terrain softened, the air grew subtly warmer, and a faint wisp of smoke curled upwards into the distant sky. He had arrived. The sanctuary wasn't the bustling fortress he might have imagined. Instead, it was a collection of humble, well-maintained structures nestled within a natural amphitheater of towering ancient trees. Smoke curled lazily from stone chimneys, and the scent of wood smoke mingled with something sweet and earthy. As he cautiously approached the perimeter, a figure emerged from the shadows of a large oak, a woman of indeterminate age, her face etched with the lines of hardship, but her eyes holding a striking warmth. This was Mara. Her gaze, initially wary, softened slightly as she took in Elias's gaunt, dust-caked appearance. She carried herself with a quiet strength, her movements efficient and graceful, despite the tattered remnants of her clothing. There was a shared understanding in their first glance, an unspoken acknowledgement of the weight of the world they both carried. Mara, too, had known profound loss, a truth that resonated deeply within Elias, even before a single word was exchanged. She offered him water, a simple gesture of kindness that felt monumental to his parched throat and soul. Their initial interactions were tentative, fraught with the silent questions and unspoken histories that define survivors in this fractured world. Elias, accustomed to his solitary bitterness, found himself struggling to articulate the tangled mess of emotions that now stirred within him. Mara, though cautious, possessed a quiet patience, allowing him space but never truly letting him retreat into his shell of hardened resolve. She spoke little of her own past, yet her quiet empathy was a language Elias understood. He saw in her eyes a reflection of his own pain, but also a glimmer of resilience he hadn't realized he possessed. Slowly, carefully, Mara's gentle spirit began to chip away at Elias's hardened exterior. She didn't preach or offer platitudes. Instead, she showed him through her actions the quiet strength of community, the enduring power of human connection. He watched her tend to a small, thriving garden, its vibrant greens a stark contrast to the barren landscapes he had traversed. He saw her share her meager rations without hesitation, offer comfort to a frightened child, and work tirelessly for the collective good. Each observation was a small crack in the dam of his cynicism. He found himself drawn to her quiet strength, to the way she navigated the harsh realities of their existence with an unwavering, almost defiant hope. One evening, as the last embers of twilight faded and the sanctuary settled into a hushed silence, Mara sat beside him near a crackling fire. Her voice was soft, barely a whisper, as she spoke of the old world, of the lives they had all lost. Then, with a hesitant pause that seemed to stretch into an eternity, she looked directly into Elias's eyes. "I knew someone," she began, her voice barely audible. "Someone connected to your past, I think. Someone you believed was lost." Her words hung in the cool night air, a sudden, jarring chord in the quiet symphony of their shared grief. Elias's heart, long dormant, lurched within his chest. The revelation was a shock, a sudden jolt that stirred a new, urgent wave of curiosity, tinged with a fragile, almost terrifying hope. Could it be? Was there truly a thread connecting his shattered past to this unexpected present? The possibility, however remote, was enough to ignite a flicker of something Elias hadn't felt in a very long time. Mara's words had struck Elias with the force of a physical blow, shattering the carefully constructed walls around his heart. The quiet hope, fragile yet persistent, began to demand answers. He turned to her, his voice hoarse with a mixture of apprehension and desperate yearning. "Who?" he managed to ask. The single syllable laden with years of unspoken grief and longing. Mara's gaze was steady, her eyes reflecting the dancing firelight. She hesitated again, choosing her words with a precision that suggested the immense weight of the truth she was about to impart. "It was about the betrayal," she finally said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "The one you seek vengeance for. It wasn't as simple as it seemed. The collapse, the devastation. There were layers to it, manipulations from within, yes, but also a desperate attempt to protect something, someone, from a greater, unseen enemy." She paused, allowing her words to sink in. "The person I knew, the one you thought lost, was caught in the middle. They weren't a victim of the initial betrayal, Elias, but a casualty of the ensuing chaos, trying to expose the real architects of the destruction, not just the visible pawns." Elias felt a cold dread seep into his bones, warring with the burgeoning flicker of hope. His mind, so long fixed on a singular vengeful truth, reeled with this new unsettling information. The clear lines he had drawn between orchestrators and victims, between heroes and villains, blurred into a confusing moral grey. Was his entire quest, his burning desire for retribution, built upon a foundation of misunderstanding? He had envisioned a straightforward path to justice, an eye for an eye, but Mara's revelation twisted the narrative into an intricate, painful riddle. The weight of his past actions, fueled by what now seemed like an incomplete truth, pressed down on him. His anger, once a clear, guiding force, now felt muddled and misdirected. Over the next few days, Elias watched Mara and the others in the sanctuary with new eyes. He saw acts of profound compassion that stood in stark contrast to his own enduring bitterness. A young woman, barely more than a child, shared her meager portion of stew with an elderly man who was too weak to gather his own. A group of men and women worked tirelessly to repair a damaged wall, their movements synchronized, their faces etched with determination, not despair. There was a quiet dignity in their resilience, a collective strength born not of vengeance, but of shared survival and mutual care. Elias observed the way they found joy in small victories, a successful harvest, a child's laughter, the quiet camaraderie around the evening fire. He began to see that his singular pursuit of revenge had blinded him to the possibility of a different kind of strength, a strength found in rebuilding, not just tearing down. His motivation, once a sharp, singular point, began to diffuse. The edge of his vengeful thirst softened, replaced by a nascent curiosity about this greater unseen enemy Mara had mentioned, and a growing desire to understand the full scope of the truth. He started to ask questions, not just about the past, but about their present, their future, their hopes. He found himself offering assistance, using his skills to mend tools, to scout for resources, to stand guard. The physical labor, once a mere distraction from his internal turmoil, now felt purposeful, connected to something larger than himself. One morning, as Elias was helping to clear debris from a collapsed structure, a figure approached him. It was an elder, a woman whose face was a tapestry of wrinkles, each line telling a story of hardship and wisdom. Her eyes, though ancient, held a piercing clarity that seemed to see directly into Elias's soul. She stopped before him, her gaze unwavering. "Elias," she said, her voice gravelly but firm, "I recognize you. The stories, the prophecies, they spoke of a man who would return from the shadows, a man burdened by loss, destined to choose between the path of destruction and the path of restoration. You are that man, Elias. The prophecy speaks of you." Her words hung in the air, a profound and unexpected pronouncement that left Elias stunned, his shovel falling from his grasp with a dull thud. The elder's words resonated deep within Elias, stirring a dormant part of his being he had long believed extinguished. A prophecy. He, Elias, a man consumed by the ashes of his past, was destined for something more than mere vengeance. The weight of her pronouncement settled on his shoulders, a burden far heavier than any physical task, yet strangely exhilarating. He was no longer just a survivor, a seeker of retribution. He was a figure in a larger ancient narrative. The path of destruction, once so clearly defined by his anger, now seemed a narrow, desolate road compared to the vast, challenging expanse of restoration. He had always seen himself as an instrument of justice, but the elder suggested he could be an architect of healing. Elias spent the next few days in quiet contemplation, the elder's words echoing in his mind. He observed the community, not just for practical reasons, but to understand the essence of their resilience. He saw children playing amidst ruins, finding joy in simple games. He saw adults sharing stories and laughter, even as they faced daily struggles. Their hope was not a denial of their suffering, but a fierce, tenacious commitment to life, to rebuilding. This community, battered and scarred, was a living testament to the power of collective will, a stark contrast to his solitary, destructive journey. The moral dilemma was stark: cling to the familiar, albeit corrosive, comfort of his anger, or embrace the terrifying yet hopeful possibility of redemption. The choice, when it came, felt less like a decision and more like an awakening. Elias chose redemption. He approached the elder, his eyes holding a newfound resolve. "Tell me what needs to be done," he stated, his voice firm, devoid of its former bitterness. The elder smiled, a knowing glint in her ancient eyes. She spoke of the sanctuary's vulnerabilities, its need for stronger defenses, for more efficient resource management, for someone with the courage and skill to venture beyond its fragile borders to secure vital supplies. Elias, with his honed survival instincts and tactical mind, was perfectly suited for these tasks. He threw himself into the work with an intensity that surprised even himself. He organized scouting parties, mapping out safe routes and potential dangers in the surrounding wilderness. He helped fortify the sanctuary's perimeter, using his knowledge of traps and defensive strategies to create a more secure haven. He taught the younger members how to hunt and forage more effectively, imparting skills that would ensure their survival. With each successful expedition, each reinforced wall, each shared lesson, a piece of the ice around his heart began to melt. He was no longer just existing. He was contributing, building, protecting. His relationship with Mara deepened during this time. She saw the change in him, the softening of his gaze, the lessening of the tension in his shoulders. They shared quiet moments by the fire, discussing not just the practicalities of survival, but their hopes, their fears, and the lingering echoes of their pasts. Mara's gentle spirit, her unwavering belief in the good within people, was a balm to his wounded soul. She offered him a sense of belonging he had thought was forever lost, a quiet understanding that transcended words. He found himself looking forward to their conversations, to the shared silences, to the easy camaraderie that blossomed between them. Her presence was a beacon, guiding him further away from the shadows he had inhabited for so long. Just as a fragile peace began to settle over the sanctuary, a new threat emerged from the desolate landscape. Scouts reported unusual movements on the horizon, columns of dust rising in the distance, too organized to be natural phenomena. Whispers of raiders, more ruthless and numerous than any they had faced before, began to circulate, testing the fragile peace of the sanctuary and Elias's newfound resolve. The past, it seemed, was not yet ready to release its grip, and the path to redemption would be far from easy. The approaching danger loomed, a dark cloud threatening to engulf the glimmer of hope they had so painstakingly cultivated. Elias stood atop the makeshift watchtower, the wind whipping at his hair, his gaze fixed on the approaching menace. The dust clouds had grown larger, revealing the grim silhouette of a raiding party, their numbers daunting. This was not merely a skirmish, it was an assault, a true test of their fragile new beginning. With a deep breath, he turned to face the community below, his voice ringing with newfound authority and calm. He outlined a strategy, not of reckless aggression, but of calculated defense, leveraging the sanctuary's natural defenses and the traps he had helped to set. There was no fear in his eyes, only unwavering determination. Mara stood beside him, her hand gently touching his arm, a silent gesture of solidarity and strength. The community, though apprehensive, responded to Elias's leadership with a trust that had been hard-won. They prepared for the inevitable, each person taking their assigned position, their faces etched with a blend of fear and resolve. When the raiders finally breached the outer perimeter, they met not chaos but an organized resistance. Arrows rained down from hidden positions, traps ensnared their advance, and the fortified walls held firm against their initial onslaught. Elias moved with precision and purpose, directing defenders, patching weaknesses, and fighting alongside them when necessary. He was no longer the lone wolf, driven by personal demons. He was a leader, protecting his people. In the thick of the battle, a critical section of the wall began to crumble under a sustained assault. Without hesitation, Elias rallied a small group, placing himself at the forefront, holding the line against overwhelming odds. It was a moment of profound sacrifice, not of his life, but of his carefully constructed emotional barriers. He fought not for vengeance, but for the lives of those he had come to cherish. The climax arrived as the raiders' leader, a hulking brute, broke through a weakened point, intent on scattering the defenders. Elias met him head-on, their clash a brutal dance of desperation and skill. He fought with a ferocity born of his past pain, but tempered by his present purpose. With a final decisive move, he disarmed the leader, forcing the remaining raiders into disarray. Seeing their commander defeated, their morale shattered, they broke and fled, disappearing back into the desolate wastes from which they had emerged. Silence descended upon the sanctuary, broken only by the panting breaths of the exhausted defenders. There were injuries, but no lives lost. Elias, bruised and weary, looked out at the faces around him, faces filled with relief, gratitude, and a profound sense of unity. The community had survived, stronger and more cohesive than ever. In the aftermath, the sanctuary didn't merely rebuild, it thrived. The victory had forged an unbreakable bond among its inhabitants. Fields that had once lain fallow were now green with new crops. The water purification system Elias had helped design provided abundant clean water, and the defenses were stronger than ever. The past was not erased. The scars of loss remained, but they no longer dictated the present. Instead, they served as a reminder of what they had overcome, fueling their determination to build a better future. Elias found a profound, quiet peace in this new existence. His days were filled with purpose, his nights with the comforting presence of Mara. They often sat together under the vast, starlit sky, their hands intertwined, speaking of small joys and future plans. He had once believed love was a weakness, a vulnerability that led only to pain. Now he understood it was the ultimate strength, the very foundation of hope. To commemorate their survival and the enduring spirit of their community, they planted a sapling in the center of the sanctuary, a resilient native tree, chosen for its ability to flourish in harsh conditions. It became a living symbol of enduring hope, a beacon for future generations, its roots reaching deep into the earth, just as their community's roots grew deeper into shared purpose. Elias, watching the sapling grow, felt a quiet contentment wash over him. He had faced despair, walked the path of vengeance, and ultimately found redemption. With Mara by his side, embracing a future he never thought possible, he knew that even when hope seemed gone, faith and indeed love would always remain.